and then again. It does light up a lot, but I don't know whether you're going to be aware of it.
I can't see it.
No, what about on the top of the microphone unit just here?
Is it on or off at the moment?
Can you just
Thank you, Chairman. Please note we are trialling hybrid meeting arrangements with registered speakers and councillors who are not members of the Planning Committee having the option to join the meeting via Zoom, and we are also live streaming this meeting via the Council's YouTube channel to encourage more people to engage in our public meetings. The proceedings of the meeting will also be recorded. Please can I remind everyone to use their microphones when speaking and turn them off when finished. Please can attendees present in person refrain from watching the live stream or joining the Zoom link, as this will cause interference for our viewers. In accordance with the Constitution, members of the public who have registered to speak will be permitted to do so when invited by the Chairman. I have confirmed those entitled to speak. We are not expecting any fire alarm testing today. In the event of an evacuation, please leave by the nearest exit and gather in the car park next to the library opposite Tesco. Please also ensure that your mobile phone and iPads are turned to silent. Each application will be dealt with in the following order. The Planning Officer will present the submitted application. At the end of the Planning Officer's presentation, the Planning Officer will outline the proposed recommendation in full. Any speakers registered to speak on the application will be invited to address the committee. This will be taken in the following order. Speakers against, Neighbourhood Forum's representatives, speakers in support of the application, followed by any councillors who are not members of the committee. All speakers will have a maximum of 5 minutes to address the meeting. This will be followed by questions from members and responses from the Planning Officer. Once questions from the committee have concluded, the Chairman will open the application for debate. At the conclusion of the debate, the Chairman will seek a proposer and seconder for the application. The proposal must be in full and include all information, such as conditions or reasons. The Chairman will then confirm with the Planning Officer if they wish to enter into a period of summing up. Members, if at any point you leave the meeting for any reason during the consideration of an application, you will be unable to vote on that application. I will now hand the chairing of the meeting to the Vice Chairman, Councillor Dudley.
Thank you. Are there any apologies or updates to the membership of the committee?
Councillor Chris Lewis is substituting for Councillor Jacqueline Thomas. Councillor Manning is substituting for Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Steve Darling is substituting for Councillor Pentney. And I have apologies from Councillor Dart.
Thank you. With respect to agenda item number 2, minutes, the minutes of the Planning Committee held on 9th of May 2022, I believe, will be deferred to the July meeting.
That's correct, Chairman.
Agenda item number 3, is there any declaration of interests? Do any members of the Planning Committee have any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests on any of the items on today's agenda? Please raise your hand. So no declaration of interests. Agenda item number 4. Oh, sorry, yes. Do any officers have any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests on any of the items on today's agenda?
Chairman, Wendy Ormsby has declared an interest in agenda item 5, Sholston Pool.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 4. Are there any urgent items?
There are none.
Okay. Agenda item number 5 is to consider an application for Sholston Pool, Berryhead Road, Brixham, TQ5 9FT. The clerk has confirmed those who have registered to speak upon entry to the meeting, and I will therefore ask June Pagdin to introduce the application.
Thank you, Chair. Can you all hear me? Yes, it's great to have a microphone, so thank you to the technical team, because I know my voice can be quiet at times. Right, so this application is for two type of improvement to the Sholston Pool trying to see if I had a mouse or pointer. Okay, so the area to the left is where there is an existing public seating shelter, and that's where it's proposed to install some beach huts. There is another public shelter of a similar kind at the east end of the local green space. Just for clarity, the local green space is outlined in blue, the whole thing. And so the application relates to a small part of the site of the green space. And here's an aerial view. It shows the rooftop is a concrete area just to the south of the actual pool, and the green space is just part of the larger grassed area which is fenced off from the footpath. And you can clearly see the public seating shelter at the west end of the site. So site areas, what I'm calling 1 and 2, number 1 will be the rooftop. You can see the existing cafe and the existing terrace, which have planning permission for use as a cafe. And the area to the left of the tarmac path, an area about 15 metres long and 3.5 metres deep, is proposed to be turned to a seating area. Here's a view of those two areas from the opposite direction. And from here you can see the other public seating shelter next to the public conveniences. There's a plan of what's there at the moment, and the existing elevations. As you saw in the photograph, the rooftop is currently surrounded by a blue arris fence, and that's a profile of the site, which shows that the grassed area to the south of the path has a slight incline upwards. Here's a plan of what's proposed in that area. A new set of stairs up to the rooftop with a railing beside. And to the south of the path, the darker green area would be level, would actually be gravel, and the paler green area would be a banking of the grass leading up to the rest of the area. There's not much difference in the elevations, to be honest. It really is just railing along the south side of the rooftop and a small staircase with a railing around it to keep it safe. This shows the profile of how the bank to the south of the path would be levelled, and the grass bank would be made slightly steeper at the back and probably at the sides as well. There's a detail through the seating area just showing that it's retained with timber, a natural material, and that hardcore and a natural looking gravel would be used to maintain a permeable surface. This is the proposed area, supposed to be area 3, for where the public shelter currently is. There's the seating area. There's a nice close-up of it here. It's got a traditional look around it, and is part of the conservation area, but those tiles are Eternit tiles. They're not a natural slate, and the ridge tiles are concrete. So the area 3, is proposed to have 21 beach huts on it once the public shelter has been removed, in a line backing up to the hedge to the car and boat park. There's a profile of how high they would be compared with the existing seating shelter, so they would kind of nestle in behind the boundary hedge. That's a different section, and they won't be pink. No, this is just an illustration. Details of the material and the colour of materials can be sought through a planning condition, which is recommended, but I think this was just to make them stand out in the elevation drawings. And the detail through the new soft standing area for the beach huts, which would also be a free draining permeable surface and timber edged in natural materials to suit the area. This is more what they would look like, the traditional Torbay style of beach hut with 1.8 metre high eave and a 2.5 metre high ridge and a footprint of 1.8 metres squared. So these are the neighbourhood plan policies that were relevant. Established architecture for the conservation area and the use of the local green space and appropriateness of development within that. So these were the main issues. Okay. The area has several designations. It's a core tourist investment area, it's an urban protected landscape area, it's a local green space, and a conservation area, and there are listed buildings to the rear, which I'll show you on the aerial map. So to the south of the green space is the gardens of the houses which are on Berryhead Road, and the ones in the photograph here are listed buildings grade 2. So you can see that the proposed beach huts would not actually be behind a listed building, they would be behind the car and boat park, and the seating areas would be settled down quite low in profile on an existing rooftop and down behind hedges and a grass bank, so the impact on those listed buildings would be fairly minor. So the issues. The proposal aims to extend the tourism offer of the existing local green space following increased demand over recent years. Visually, the urban protected landscape area wouldn't be really adversely impacted, subject to a condition requiring replacement public seating. I think that was felt quite strongly in the objection that we had from members of the public. And subject to appearance of the materials used for the seating areas and prevention of structures projecting upwards from those seating areas of a permanent or temporary nature. The applicant has also mentioned that they pointed out that the ecological assessment that was submitted with the application included the suggestion of a wildlife flower meadow elsewhere on the local green space, and that can be secured through a Grampian style condition and would seem to be appropriate in this landscape area. In terms of heritage, it's felt that the beach huts are generally in keeping with the poolside area, as the photograph of the existing beach huts showed they would be. They would replicate those in appearance. And the minor loss of the shelter, which isn't in a good condition and doesn't really contribute positively at present. And also there is another one at the other end which echoes the history of the public open space. So on balance, the public benefits were felt to outweigh that minor harm. And so it's considered acceptable in terms of heritage. Questions about residential amenity obviously come to mind when you have eating possibly associated with alcohol consumption out in the open air, fairly close to residential properties. The existing hours, which include use of the terrace, run from midday till 10 p.m. The proposal is that those hours should be retained and that the use of the rooftop and new seating area be restricted to those hours. As previous applications did not restrict the hours of operation, but it's felt appropriate in this instance to tie those use hours in with the existing ones, as residents will probably have become accustomed to people sitting out at those hours and leaving leaving around 10 p.m. So a condition to control hours, and also this is partly a residential amenity issue, but also one of wildlife and biodiversity, which is to not allow lighting in the new seating areas because of the sensitivity of the bats who live nearby in the special area of conservation at Berryhead. So overall, the residential amenity hopefully can be adequately controlled, well, will be adequately controlled through those conditions. In terms of highways access, there's an existing car park. There's a bus stop right nearby in Berryhead Road, and there are footpaths linking to the town centre and to residential areas around. It was felt that there's potential for increasing the amount of cycle parking, and a condition can be imposed seeking that. Again, just to recap on ecology and biodiversity, to overcome the impacts of the proposal, it's necessary to introduce this condition restricting lighting and the provision of a wildlife meadow, and other recommendations in the ecological assessment are recommended to be followed up. In terms of flood risk, the impact is little because the rooftop is already impermeable, and the seating area, the new seating area in the green, would be permeable, and the beach hut standing area would also be permeable. So subject to a condition that's considered to be acceptable. So in the planning balance, the proposal is felt to be in accordance with policies of the local plan and the neighbourhood plan, subject to the provision of some replacement seating within the green. And the minor heritage harms are considered to be outweighed by public benefits. Those impacts likely to be caused by the proposal are felt to be manageable by conditions. Which takes me to my recommendation, which is just timed out. Please bear with me. Okay, the recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to the recommendations in the report, but there's something else I need to say while I'm waiting for my laptop to bring up the exact wording. Thank you for your patience. So approval subject to 1, the planning conditions outlined in the report, with the final drafting of planning conditions delegated to the Assistant Director of Planning, Housing and Climate Emergency. And I've also got a suggested rewording for condition 5 following this morning's meeting, which I'll run through. And secondly, the resolution of any new material considerations that may come to light following Planning Committee, to be delegated to the Assistant Director of Planning, Housing and Climate Emergency, including the addition of any necessary further planning conditions or obligations. So my recommendation was for condition 5 is requiring submission of details of works to the restaurant rooftop and the green level seating area. I've just wanted to add in the bold underlined words, which you can see on the screen, good. So that's just making clear the boundary fences need to be included, and seating and table furniture, and where possible the number of covers. So those details can be submitted by condition when they're known, because the number of covers isn't known at present, and then a recommendation that the approved number of covers not be exceeded at any time. So those details would be sought through the condition 5. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, June, for your presentation. I now call upon Jessica Stock, Chair of Sholston Pool, to speak in support of the application. Okay. You now have 5 minutes, and the clerk will let you know when you have 1 minute remaining. Okay.
Thank you very much. Just to clarify, obviously I am Chair of Sholstone Pool. It's actually Sholstone Seawater Pool CIO. We've very recently become a registered charity. Obviously it was gone under a CIC to start with. today, first of all, again, I just wanted to, I think a lot of you will already know this, but the site remain obviously owned by yourselves at Torbay Council. You have a lease with Brixham Town Council, and Sholstone Seawater Pool CIO manage the site on behalf of Brixham Town Council. We are, having said that though, an independent organisation from Brixham Town Council. The whole site, apart from the kiosk, which is down on sea level, is run by Sholstone Pool, and we take all revenues from all of those areas. So that's the car park, the beach huts, a portion of the turnover for the cafe, and any obviously other income we have on poolside. So we obviously are responsible for the whole of the site. I think that was one of the questions that came out this morning. So I appreciate you've obviously been through the plans, thank you, June. And I just wanted to really talk about some of the conditions that you've obviously put on to the plan making, the recommendation, if it kind of goes through, because I think some of them, I think we felt that we'd actually answered within the application itself, and perhaps I could kind of give some further details, or at least kind of clarify why we believe that is so. So I was going to go down each kind of condition in its own kind of right comment that I had with them. The first condition on there was related to the flood risk and the soak-away provision within that site, which is to do with the beach huts. The beach hut area at the moment is obviously is grass. The intention is to put down a permeable membrane to obviously continue that permeable surface. Each beach hut will be separated from its neighbour very slightly, so that obviously there is eaves on any, as you would have on any beach hut, and that water from the beach huts would then drain onto the gravel, onto the grass, etc. In other words, just as it does now. I appreciate that if you're having any development over a certain square meterage, that you have to have soak-away provision and flood prevention measures put in place. But we feel that the beach huts, it's not a huge, large expanse of roof space that it's going up there. It's going onto a permeable membrane underneath. So therefore we felt that, to be honest, and we've discussed this with builders and also our architects, and they felt that having a soak-away was not a necessity. Now I appreciate that you need to discuss that point and see what yourselves, but actually each beach hut itself will drain onto the grass. If you have a soak-away, it would concentrate the area of drainage into one particular area. I will also say I obviously haven't dug a hole to see what's underneath it, but I can tell you from other areas on the site, it's rock under there. So trying to build a deep soak-away might be difficult. So anyway, that was our comment, and we felt that it would be free draining enough over the whole of that area, just as it is now. There is also no buildings down kind of downstream, so to speak, of the actual site. It just drains straight into the sea. We're obviously so many metres off the sea edge, so there would not be any further kind of flood risk beyond our point in time. So that was kind of point one. The condition 3 was related to the substitution of it by other seating areas. Obviously, if the shelter comes down, to replace it with the beach huts. We are already in progress of putting seating area on the green. Those perhaps who know the Sholstone site, there are on the green itself, many years ago, there are picnic benches, and there are 6 hard standings on the green already, which we are looking, and in fact the order has gone in for these seats. And if we didn't have a shortage of steel, I understand, to get these steel benches and picnic tables in, they would have been a lot earlier. But the intention is to put those seats, 6 picnic benches on the green, and then also reinstate the benches along the walkway. So in other words, between by the fence, I think there are about 4 or 5 benches there already. These are memorial benches, and in the time gone past, there have been a lot more.
1 minute remaining.
Okay, thank you. So we're obviously already in progress of doing that. It's going to be in this summer. The last one, which is point 5, which I understand you've already had amendment on, we felt the beach huts themselves are going to be Torbay standard beach hut design. That the specification of the materials, the size, the colour is fully in your Torbay specification. That is what they're going to look like. So therefore, there's no need to ask us what they're going to look like, because we've already told you what they're going to look like. The actual area, the gravel, the area of the footings of those, again, it's pea gravel and it is sleepers to the side. You've asked us for details of those materials. It's already, as far as we're concerned, in that planning application. The fence, you've already, I think you've taken that out. I can't see behind me. The fence between the grass and the terrace area is remaining.
Your 5 minutes is up, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
But, okay, thank you very much for your presentation. I will now invite questions to the planning officer. Please may I remind members that questions should only cover matters not raised in the presentation. Are there any members wishing to ask a question? Councillor Manning.
The benches there, who do they actually belong to? And are they going to be sold off, let off, or what? Do you know what's happening to the benches?
The bench is in the public seating shelter.
You're just going to have them open for people to sit in. That doesn't make sense somehow. You've got all these beach huts.
Oh, the beach hut.
The beach huts, sorry, the beach huts.
Yes.
What's happened to beach huts? Who do they belong to? And are they let off, or what? What are they going to be used for?
Okay. I think it's best if Jessica answers this one, because she's got like all the information.
The beach huts, like, to be honest, all the Torbay beach huts will be rented out to members of the public. We have beach huts down the bottom already, which are rented out for summer season. Beach huts up the top. The intention, actually, we haven't finalised fully how we will do it. We'll either rent a space, so somebody provides a beach hut, or we will purchase a beach hut ourselves and then we rent it out to members of the public.
And that money will go to Shoalstone Pool?
Yes, all the money will go to Shoalstone Pool.
Councillor Chris Lewis, you have a question?
Yeah, Chairman, are we going to allow Jessica to answer questions? Because if we've got questions that the officer can't answer, I mean, it does set a precedent, but...
It's information that she sent some to me this afternoon, but she has a lot more background information, so if you have follow-on questions, she can answer them without you having to ask again, as it were. But
Okay, I think in that case, yes, I will allow the questions to go forward, yeah. Do you want to do that?
Yep. It's up to you, Chairman. Yep. Okay. Well, this is either for the officer or for Jessica. I see on page 20 of our report the landscaping plan to include wildflower meadows. My understanding, in looking at some of the complaints, is that green is used as a green. So you might have people kicking a football around, you might have people having a picnic, you might have people doing that. The wildflower meadow only flowers in the middle of July, August. The rest of the time it is, using the words mildly, is quite a mess. Are you happy with that wildflower? Because it's not actually recommended by the people who inspected it. It's a nice to have, but it's not actually stated that it should be had.
Yeah, perhaps thank you. As you say, it is in discussion with the ecologist, etc. But the suggestion that he made was the fact that there was a narrow strip between the hedge boundary, especially towards the car park end where you've got the dink along. That is not used at all by the public at that area at the moment. It's quite rough grass. Right. So it would be a metre and a half strip all the way across that far hedge boundary. Obviously maintaining the access to the back gates that there are up there, just to kind of make a better provision, I suppose, for wildlife there. The actual main part of the green will stay as it is. It literally is strips kind of along that hedge.
Great, that was the question. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Yeah, a question for you, Kitchen. What is Grampian-style planning condition? What is Grampian-style planning conditions? Because it's mentioned twice in the report, and I have no idea what Grampian-style planning condition is. Can you explain it?
sorry if I was being speaking gobbledygook. It's a condition that's worded and is used, well, it's a condition that's used where you're asking for something to happen either on the site or just beyond the site or off the site before the development permitted by the planning permission is actually undertaken. So it's a kind of insurance. So it's worded, it's usually used for highways, which is where the word Grampian comes from on some particular instance where it was used. But it's asking for something to be done before the development takes place. So it's just referring really to the way it's worded. So if I say a Grampian condition requiring landscaping as a result of the loss of a bit of the grassed area, that means that the condition is requiring the wildlife flowering meadow to be provided, or details of it to be provided, and it to be provided before the grassed area is developed.
I haven't finished.
So it's a timing.
Sorry?
It's a timing thing.
Oh, right, thank you. I don't know who this question's for. It could be for Jessica. Who will be cutting the grass in front of the beach huts and the area of all the grass? Because it's pretty awful at the minute. It's not manicured or cut, or whose responsibility will that be? You'll be responsible for the beach huts, but who'll be responsible for what, the grass area?
We are responsible for the cutting of the grass.
You are currently?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Can I do this off record? Okay, I'm not saying that one.
Will you be keeping the same person cutting it?
I hope so.
Okay. The other thing I have is the beach huts. You're going to be responsible for the beach huts. Will you be making the terms and conditions for beach hut owners? I'm thinking not owners, renters. I'm thinking the point of view of allowing barbecues or anything. I can't imagine that would be something that.
Sorry, put that again. We actually have our tenancy agreement with our beach hut holders already. It'll obviously be extended to those people who have beach huts on the green. There may be additional conditions. I mean, big barbecues are allowed on the green. They are, we have no way of stopping people having barbecues. They currently do have barbecues on the green. But obviously, the intention, the beach hut tenancy agreement will have things regarding litter. It'll have things like giving people access to in front of their beach huts, making sure that they obviously act responsibly within their beach huts regarding noise, etc. And if anybody obviously does not kind of follow those tenancy agreements, they will be moved off.
The waste collection and refuse, it said that the operation is by Sholston Pool, CIC and the restaurant, and that will be continuing for the whole area. Yes. Can I make a plea that something is done to the 2 bins currently on the coastal path? You've got a bin store, and then there's two big red bins. Is it possible something can be done about those? I don't know if that's relevant for this meeting.
It perhaps isn't relevant, but I can talk about it. The reason that's happened is that they've changed the bin provider, which is now gone to Cisco, and the new bins don't fit in the bin store. So that is our solution. That is being acted upon now. So yeah.
One more?
Yes. The steps going up to the top terrace, the roof, will they impede at all onto the coastal path or not? Definitely not.
No, the intention, I don't believe it. The cafe roof sits back slightly. There you go. It sits back from the main coastal path. So as you can see, there is probably about a metre's worth of distance between that and the main one way through. So no, that would not impede onto it.
Thank you.
Councillor Barbara Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to the lighting, you're going to have restricted lighting on the top terrace there?
There is no intention for lighting on that top terrace.
None at all?
No.
What about on the grassed area?
No. There is already very low level lighting along that boundary fence. So when you come up to the cafe steps at the far end, just to take you around to the car park, the intention is not to have any further lighting on site. So as I think, you know, you've said, the kind of hours of the terrace, the terrace is there for the daylight hours. The intention is not for it to be used out of hours.
So as soon as it starts getting dark,
They will not be able to use it, yeah.
And also with the grassed area?
Yes.
Okay. Just one more. It states in there about the existing shelter being past its sell-by date, basically, and it's been vandalised and everything else. So if you're going to put beach huts all along there, 20 beach huts, are you going to have CCTV there for antisocial behaviour?
There is already CCTV on site that's gone in this year. There is a camera which looks down that pathway so we can people coming in. And to be honest, intention, that area of the site is not used. That end of the site is very, very ill used. I mean, our feeling actually with the beach hut tenants being down there, it'll actually deter people from going down and obviously huddling behind the shelter, which is what they do currently. So there's two things for you to answer that. Yes, the CCTV is in place. And secondly, we're hoping with the more use of that end of the site, that'll deter the vandalism anyway.
So there'll be no lighting down there either?
There will be no lighting down that end either.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions at all? Okay. So we now, after the questions, move on to debate. Is there any debate? Councillor Chris Lewis.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And Jessica's down left. I'd like to congratulate Shelston Pool. I remember, I'm sure Councillor Darling remembers, 15 years ago, I think it was probably, maybe a bit less, when there was fear that Shelston Pool would actually close. And I'm delighted that through doing this sort of action, it can be self-funding and manned by the community. It reminds me of the Geopark down in Paynton, where we had problems, but the community stepped up and managed to keep it alive and thriving. And I think it's a lesson for other people in the Bay of how to make things work without necessarily needing the council to finance it. So I'd like to propose recommendation on this, Mr. Chairman, when we come to it. Thank you.
I've been to that restaurant there, and it's a lovely restaurant, actually. And it's nice to have something like that in that area. I think it brings the tourists in and the people in, and it's nice. And I've just had good meals in there, so I'm looking forward to it being made a little bit bigger, get more people in there. So it's sooner the better, and I think it's a nice place, and I'd like to second your bit as well.
Are there any more debates? Okay. There being no more debates, then Councillor Chris Lewis, can we have your
yeah, the recommendation is per the document, and I'd like to thank the officer for adding that. Thank you very much. I'd like to put the recommendation as outlined in the document, the officer recommendation, and I'd like to thank the officer for clearing up and putting in about making it specific on the covers, which I think is important. So the recommendation as outlined and the one outlined by the officer on her presentation. Thank you.
Councillor Manning?
Yes, I'd like to second that and congratulate them as well on their well doing with the swimming pool. You know, it's been a quite good success.
All those in favour? Are there any to the contrary? I declare that recommendation duly approved, and again our congratulations to Shelston Pool and the wonderful work you've put in. Thank you. Agenda item number 6 is to consider an application for Torbay Velo Park, Penwell Way, Paynton. Okay. Yeah. That the clerk has confirmed those who have registered to speak upon entry to the meeting. I will therefore ask Mr. Jim Blackwell to introduce the application.
Thank you. If you can bear with me 2 seconds. Thank you very much. So this is an application for Torbay Velo Park, which lies between Penwell Way, Dartmouth Road and Clenham Valley playing fields. The applicant is Torbay Council. It's for the construction of a largely mown cyclocross course and 4 structural features and a pump track. It also includes relocation of 2 existing storage containers. Torbay Velo Park, which you probably all know very well, do you change the screen? Change the screen, please. Thank you. Sorry about that. Touchscreen technology. Torbay Velo Park, as you probably all know, was granted planning permission in 2014. It was the first dedicated cycling facility in the southwest, and Torbay Council worked in partnership with British Cycling to build the circuit, which is now run by Torbay Leisure Centre. This lies to the north of this aerial photograph, which includes a car parking for visitors, which is fairly sizable and links across to any overspill car parking at Key West car park in the higher season. There's a narrow service lane which links Dartmouth Road to the Clenham Valley playing fields area. So the site is accessible by both pedestrians and cyclists. Dartmouth Road to the east then leads to the YMCA, which is on the sort of southern boundary of the site. And as you've seen from the virtual site visit earlier with members, that there are glimpsed views that you come through as you travel down Dartmouth Road, and from Penwell Way as you look down from the site. So the site was formerly a landfill waste site, a low-flying grassland with a tarmac track, which is broadly rectangular in shape, with a surfaced area for events and for children to learn and adults to learn how to cycle. Until recently, there were 2 containers which you can just about see on that aerial photograph, which are used to assist running the site. In terms of landscape, the whole site is amenity grassland, although recently there's been some management of that grassland to improve the density of the scrub and for habitat benefits. It also contains a large amount of mature trees and a 1.8 metre fence which secures the complete site boundary, including the gated entrance, which is now controlled by the Leisure Centre. So to go on to the proposal, before I go on to the proposal, there has been a highway update which was provided at the end of last week, which showed that the area in purple is highway land. So prior to commencement development, the sports development team have the request to stop up that element of highway that includes the mown grass track that will be included on the right hand side of that plan there, which is a sort of technical piece of work which won't require any really impact on the planning permission if granted, but I just thought I'd mention it as an update. So this is the existing layout, which shows the course as it is now, which is broadly in a C shape orientated south. The proposal is a number of 2 tracks, which one is a public course in purple and one is a competition course in orange. Those are all mown features in the existing landscape. In terms of the more permanent structures, there'll be an earth ramp, which is 15 metres by 45 metres at 2 metres in height to the southeast corner. There'll be a sand pit, 6 metres by 30 metres with a timber sleeper frame. An earth-formed rollers, 6 by 24 metres, built to 1 metre in height. And a set of earth-filled steps, broadly in the same area, 3 metres by 10 metres with a timber frame around it. And a pump track, which you can see to the north of the site on the way in. The key consultation responses as part of this application. The Environment Agency had no objection, subject to a condition required remediation strategy. The highway section have no objection other than the update which was provided as part of the response last week, which I've just mentioned. Sport England have also confirmed they have no objection, subject to a condition requiring a scheme to manage and maintain the adjacent sports pitches. Sport England have said they support the positive steps taken to resolve those issues in the past. So you can see clearly here now, which is a much closer view of the proposals, with the pump track in the top left, the earth mound to the right-hand side, which you can see the profile of which in the black, with obviously the low-level sand pit on the left, and then the bottom image shows that plan showing the rollers and some steps. In terms of principle of the development, that's a typical detail of a pump track seen elsewhere. In terms of principle of development, the proposal would enhance that range of sports and recreation provisions of the leisure centre and for residents, visitors and tourists, which is in accordance with a healthy Torbay strategy and policies in both the local plan and the Payton neighbourhood plan. In terms of sports and recreation, we're guided by policy SC2 as well as an MPPF, which has a set of 3 criteria which goes really to the presumption against any loss of existing recreation and leisure facilities unless 3 criteria are met, which are covered in the report. Firstly, an assessment has been undertaken which understands the open space and buildings and land surplus requirements, or the loss resulting from the proposed development will be replaced by equivalent or better provision, or the development is for alternative sports and recreational provision which needs clearly outweigh the lost. So, really to summarise that, the proposal is inextricably linked to the play pitch strategy, which is nearing completion. It should be ready by July this year. So that's very close to meeting the first and second criterions. The strategy will aim to resolve those historical issues around the pitch demand for the rugby pitch and its condition. The proposal does meet the third criterion of policy SE2, which satisfies the test with the MPPF. So the proposal is considered acceptable on ecological, biodiversity and arboricultural grounds, also in terms of design, visual impact and landscape terms. There are no objections on any of those grounds or from many local neighbours. So the proposal is considered acceptable and won't harm to the character of area or local amenity, provide acceptable arrangement in terms of ecology, highways, contamination, flood risk, and is considered acceptable in terms of the local plan, the neighbourhood plan, and other material considerations. And just to follow up on those images there, you can see the entrance into the leisure centre. You can see the car park there, which is ample provision, with no impact in terms of its access into the Vela Park and its upgrade, which would include the pump track. The view there, which takes you through to Clenham Valley and the pitches beyond. The view from Dartmouth Road, which you can see that glimpsed view through to where the pump track would be and those landscape features beyond. The view through from Dartmouth Road where you get those glimpsed views of the pump track beyond those mature trees. That skills area, that area of tarmac which I referred to earlier where the containers were previously have been removed. The area of the pump track. The earth ramp and sand pit. The earth ramp would be that included in that space you can see in front of you with the planting on, and the sand pit to the left. A change in level with the middle of the site, which then would include the rollers and steps, which would be the left-hand side of that image. And the view down from Penwell Way, which obviously is very elevated. So in terms of limited impact on amenity and landscape character of that area, the site is relatively open from this high point, but obviously they're mixed in with that that use of materials which would absorb themselves into the landscape. And finally, this aerial view which shows the mown course as it is now and showing how that site would be developed. So the officer recommendation is that planning permission is granted, stated to as with the conditions outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members wishing to ask a question to the planning officer? Okay, Councillor Hill.
Thank you. It's concerning the contaminated land once again. I was on the planning committee when we approved this development, back when. There was always a problem after the development had happened. There was a problem of leakage of methane further up and around that site. And that was even following this Sherwell report. Can you give an assurance that it won't happen? Because you are going to be tinkering with it, if that's a technical term. Thank you.
Yes, there's a number of factors that it was sort of led by that as being one of the critical issues, one of the main themes of the application. So there will be no dig as part of this development. The soil will be imported to make those landscape features. There's regular monitoring of that site, and the Environment Agency have no objections. And you refer to the report there, and there's conditions proposed, which would link to that report and regular monitoring and the safe use of that site.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay. Councillor Manning and then Councillor.
It does incline sometimes, not much lately, but when it's got bad weather, to flood the road. Is that going to make any difference to where it's being built?
Yes, that's one of the original concerns. This application was due last time at last committee. One of the issues was to make sure that flood capacity is fully understood. So all those earthworks, the loss of those porta cabins, and also some regrading works will have to take place. So you're quite right that it will ultimately balance with the imported soil to make sure there's no impact on flooding, but it shouldn't exacerbate that issue. And Environment Agency and our own engineer has considered that and is satisfied with the details provided.
Councillor Chris Lewis.
Can you tell me what a pump track is?
If we go back to that image, a pump track has a hardbound surface, and it's for usually younger people to practice their skills. So it's not necessarily a race track, but it's like a skills learning space. So people can use that course and get used to manoeuvring a bike around in uneven ground and uneven. So it's very good for sort of exercise and balance, and for young people to learn how to ride a bike safely.
I mean, it looks very much like a BMX track to me, which we've got in Parkfield. I mean, it's just an observation that I don't know how high that goes. I'm not sure if it's in the report, but certainly the Parkfield one is quite high.
This is linked to the cyclocross, so it's the cyclocross element has elements where you get off the bike and you pick it up and you go up steps and you remount. So it's all to do with skills. It's not a BMX track. It's to do with skills as a cyclist. And obviously, I suppose how it's used, if you're concerned, if that's the aim of the question around the sort of concern, will it be used as a BMX track? If that's an issue, then I suppose that's the long-term management of that facility. But it's linked to British Cycling and funding through them with Torbay Council. So it's closely monitored and managed, I would expect, if that is a concern.
And it's not very high?
No, no, maximum I think is 2 metres.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Councillor Mills.
What surface is that? Is that tarmac?
Sorry. It's tarmac with a bound surface for the edges, and then the grass is planted in between it.
Just another question. You said about flooding. If the ground is compacted, which it will be with the mounds and things, the water won't permeate through compacted soil, will it?
It's imported soil, so it'll have the same drainage. The whole thing has been, in terms of the natural, those features are sort of naturalised features with grass. And in terms of the sort of total flood capacity of everything that's been imported into it, there'll be some regrading as part of these plans, which we've got some further information on, to ensure that it all balances out in terms of what's imported, what's not imported, and make sure the whole thing is flood resilient through through drainage.
So, Councillor Hill, did you have
Thank you, Chairman. That was to be my question concerning that surface, because you say it's for younger children, younger people to practice their skills, and this is going to be a tarmacked area, or will it be this rubberized solution which is more suitable for them, so when they bang their heads they don't stain it red?
Well, the actual 1.5 kilometre track is tarmac, so it's the actual tarmac element is just around the sort of the circuit, if you like, on that image. The rest of it is permeable, sort of bound material, and then the grass. So yeah, it'll be tarmac, but a smooth grade tarmac to enable safe cycling, I guess.
any more questions to the planning officer? Is there any debate amongst councillors? In that case, can we have a proposer? Sorry?
I propose acceptance as per the officer's recommendation.
Okay.
I'm happy to second that.
A second.
Yep.
Okay. All those in favour? Are there any to the contrary? Okay, I declare that duly confirmed.
Thank you.